Welcome back, South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. Ashlyn, Sullivan, Al Morganti here with you, recapping a weekend of hockey, a week of hockey, and getting ready for a big road trip for the Flyers. It was successful at first the week, and then it ended in disappointment. That's for sure, as the Flyers got 2 wins against St. Louis and Boston, and then they end up losing to Boston on home ice, which I think is the real bummer there, Al, is once again a home loss and a shutout loss and power play struggles and all the things that go wrong seem to go extra wrong at home.
Yeah, like I had family members at the game. My wife went to the game. Daughter went to the game. They didn't see any goals. And it sounds stupid, but it really is a 1:00 afternoon game, and you go out there and not even once do you get the horn go off and you get excited for a goal. It's a good crowd, really good crowd. And they were all ready to just cheer a goal and never get to see anything because the Flyers offense it's non-existent is basically what's happened here. So I don't know if you've got family members at a game, you have friends at a game, whatever, and they go to 3 games a year, and this is one of them, and they're all jacked up for it. You get no offense. And the problem beyond that was it wasn't even a very physical game in terms of fight or anything like that. And I think part of the reason, Ashlyn, was Boston was really struggling. They were terrible in the game earlier against the Flyers. Then they got hammered in Carolina. So I guess what you want to take away from it is that team was struggling badly, coach on the ropes, presumably. And what they did was they went back into a defensive shell, basically. Not that exciting a game, a low event game, as it's called, which is where the Flyers are.
Yeah.
But the Flyers don't have some of the skill players that the Bruins and other teams have. And what you're left with is your goalie has to be basically perfect, and you have to cash in on opportunities. And we're going to talk about the goaltending, but the Flyers aren't cashing in on their opportunities. And that's it makes for a low event. It makes for a game where if you feel like you're down by 8 when you're down by 2.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for sure. And bless her heart, my mother, she's from Florida, doesn't know a lot about hockey. And she texted me, she's at the game Saturday. It was packed. I mean, to get tickets was tough for this Bruins game. And she texted me, she's like, when are they going to score a goal? I was like, Mom, that's the age-old question, ain't it?
Well, yeah, it is, because, there was a 7-5 game. If that was the score, it's like, coaches don't love it, but fans love it. When you have that kind of a game. But even the coaching staff, Tortorella, they're mentioning names, right out, Tippett, Forster, Konechny, first line power. You got to score. At this point, you have to take advantage of those opportunities. Whatever few you have, you got to cash on more than 10% of them.
Yeah, and let's get into it. There's a lot to take away from, especially that Bruins game that the Flyers lost on home ice, and one of them is the goaltending situation. It was confusing at first what happened. We have a lot more clarity now, but Sam Ersson, a lower body injury, we're hearing reports that he's going to be out about a week, which I take as good news because we didn't know a lot. And if you have to imagine this team without Ersson for more than a week, it's a scary thought. Presumably the injury happened when the equipment issue malfunction happened, is what we're going to go ahead and assume. Of course, you can't know for sure, but a week is a good news for Sam Ersson and the injury report, at least I think.
Yeah, it is good news, but this was a stretch of games. There were days off in between, no back-to-backs. You really could have ridden him. If you wanted all the games to try to get, because he'd been really good. It was a weird situation where that blade came off, and I think that's where he got hurt, whatever. But I think it was important that he's smart enough to leave then and not make it worse, to get off the ice and not make it worse and see what happens. So you're left with, not the ideal situation. We'll see what we have with Kolosov, and that Fedotov has struggled. I thought Kolosov played okay, but he's kind of a deceiving goaltender because of the energy that he has. So you tend to look at the energy, but he goes east to west, at least for my liking, a little much to get pulled out of position or whatever. Not technically doesn't look certainly as technical as Ersson, I guess part of it because he's a smaller goalie has to really get from side to side. But I think that this is going to be a work in progress with him. But I'll tell you, man, he couldn't wait to get out there. I think it's like you've got Ayerson. They're kind of discussing it with the referee, and this guy's getting his.
I'm ready.
He's like, put me in, coach. I'm ready to roll. So he is ready to roll. So we'll see what happens with him. It's a tough ask though. They've got 3 really good teams coming up here. I don't know if you'll be ready for the last game, whatever, but 3 really good teams coming up, especially once they get down to Florida. Yeah,
and you can't ask for a better opportunity for Kolosov. I mean, this was a guy that we didn't know a lot about, and I credit John Tortorella for the honesty. It's pretty clear we think that he's going to get all 3 games, where he said Fedotov is no longer the backup. And this kind of confirms, if he can hold his own, this kind of confirms the backup spot when Sam Ayerson is able to come back. I think after this week, we'll have a pretty good idea of what this goaltending room is going to look like. Yeah, absolutely. We hope so. I mean, certainly some really good efforts to make you feel much better about it, and so you can kind of share the load a little bit and see what you have. And also, I mean, this is a short-term game and a long-term game. Like, what you've got another kid back in Russia that's lighting it up in the K or whatever, but you want to really, as much as you're looking at this season, you're playing chess and checkers at the same time. What have we got in terms of what's coming up? Can we count on him? Or is he good enough that other teams are scouting this and saying, can make a deal for that? We need a goaltender late in the year or whatever, and he's showing something. And you've got kids coming up, so there's all kinds of games within a game going in with the goaltending. Yeah, and especially when you look at the goaltending situation. Defensively, I know Monday at practice, Torts went in depth about the defensive issues. We know they're going to have to play a defensive game this season. That's just the way it's going to be. It's not going to be thrilling, exciting hockey. It's going to have to be really tight defense, blocking shots. And I have a hard time when I know, Al, the defense can play better, but you ask so much of them. It's hard for me to look at this and say, well, yeah, they got to step up their game when they are the game right now. They are, and their defense situation it's kind of odd. But now Zamula, hasn't played because he's really struggled mightily. So Andre comes in. I call it A to Z or Z to A, whatever you want to call it. So they've replaced Zamula basically, and I think it was to get a look. And now Andre, we liked him last year watching him because, again, energy. We see the energy with him and the feistiness that he plays with, but he's a smaller player. And, we saw Zamula for a time last year look like okay on the power play, managed to get the puck through, whatever. But I'll tell you this, Andre opened some eyes up for his play in the last game, especially the last couple, to the point where, Zamula's going to have to get back in the lineup. Now, mind you, York still isn't back. He's going on the trip. He didn't skate with the team yesterday. I believe he skated on the rink on the other side earlier. So that's going to be a spot taken when he comes back. In the meantime, Zamula may have some trouble trying to get back in because Andre really was impressive. He moved the puck pretty well. Defensively, smaller player. There's some issues there on what's going to happen. But and Tortorella mentioned he really was good on breakouts, like getting the puck up the ice, chip it off the boards where it's going to go, and not being afraid of making that move. And that's where he could be a real plus because the Flyers offense, to get it going, may have to be kickstarted down in that zone. Yeah, and I know Eric Johnson as well, his partner, has been very complimentary of him the way he's played coming in. So credit to him, again, for here's an opportunity. Seems like Neil Andre is taking it. And I think with defense as a whole, if they get back to their structure, you're going to see more success from them for sure. But I think the biggest... Well, there's 2. The biggest issue right now with this Flyers team, 1, they can't score, they can't finish. And 2, what was once a plus 2 weeks ago with this power play, I mean, the drought of all droughts, and the drought especially on home ice where you just can't seem to get it clicking. And I was always hesitant when we talked about it on shows. I didn't want to say it was fixed because we didn't have big enough sample size. But it was hard not to get excited about seeing finally some success on the power play. And now we look like morons because it's not fixed. No, they tricked us. They did. How dare they?
What makes it more upsetting is the reason we thought it was fixed was Michkov was here, and he could set things up deep in the zone. He could be the facilitator, to send the puck across, whatever, set everything up, and that has evaporated some. So he got benched for a little while during the game. And I think that what you're going to see this next game, the second unit was better than the first unit, which should never be the case.
Night is day, yeah.
Yeah, but that happened. So you may see a dramatic change in that power play. And Andre may be some of it to come in and try to get things going there. And it's like, you don't want to focus on it again because it's like, oh my God, we thought we were past these roles. Yeah, but you can't go from, we're really counting on it. And now with the goaltending the way it is, it's crucial. And there's too much there right now. The fact that they had some success with it is different than last year, where you just never saw, well, how this is going to work. Because it can work, because we saw it.
Yeah.
We saw what can happen. Now, maybe they got used to Michkov a little bit. Maybe Michkov just had a bad couple of games, but that will be something that can help them get through this whole goaltending situation. Because when the power play goes, it has a tendency to get guys' confidence, and that gets your whole offense going. Like Tippett's not going. Just got to get a team that's more willing to take chances. When you watch the Flyers now, power play or 5-on-5, which we complained about the last 2 weeks, it wasn't going. They're just not getting set up, getting opportunities in the zone. And part of it is Tortorella again today after practice was mentioning what maybe the defenseman should pinch at certain times. Then the defenseman comes back and the forward comes back and covers up the third guy high. But if you remember a couple of weeks ago, it was Drysdale that pinched at the wrong time. So you're left with, you're wondering, are they not sure of themselves right now? They need once again, if you're going to have a young team that's going to break out offensively, you really can't be afraid to make those mistakes. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it could go the other way, which is why it's really important for your forwards to cover up at times, which is why Michkov found himself on the bench. Mm-hmm. But it really is, at this point, you're wondering if you don't just take that. If you have to just decide, am I going to play all this much defense, or just is there a position time I can possibly go for it? I think at this point you possibly go for it, and your forwards cover up for you if you're at that point.
Yeah, at some point you got to make the change. And I think when people ask us what's the biggest problem with the Flyers right now, I always gravitate to the guys that needed to step up this year for them to be successful. Not only have they not stepped up, we've seen nothing from them. I mean, to the point where Torts is very much so calling them out in a respectful way in postgame. And he can't say anything else. I mean, Owen Tippett and Tyson Forster, if they can't get clicking this season, it's going to be a very disappointing year. I mean, they need these guys to take next step. Farabee's playing better. He's not getting rewarded with that goal, but you almost don't want to keep talking about it because, of course, the guys are trying, but it's all of those guys going cold at once that I think is the biggest issue we're seeing right now. Yeah,
I talked to Tippett today. He's a curious character, very low key guy, soft-spoken guy coming in. I just said, do you go in with a different mindset when you're in a slump? They're awkward questions when a guy's struggling through that. I basically said, I told him, I said, we keep mentioning your shooting percentage, that it's just, he goes, well, I don't change he said, I don't change it much. He goes, if I get the shot, I take the shot. And he looks at it like it's an entire line thing. We just have to set everybody up and get those opportunities. You can't answer a question of why are you shooting wide? I mean, it's an impossible answer.
Because he doesn't know, or else he'd fix it, of course.
Well, I mean, you risk him looking at you like you're a dope and saying, oh, yeah, I really want to shoot wide. That's in the game plan.
That's my plot, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like, but you can tell when there's a lack of confidence all around in that.
Yeah.
I honestly think, I would tell him just try to take the goal, not literally, but figuratively take the goalie's head off, right? Just
right in the middle. Yeah.
Early in the game, just high, just intimidate. Try to, because you got a hell of a shot. You get unbelievable wheels to just go in and maybe that's the key. Now, I'm no coach, so I'm not going to explain it, but I'm thinking maybe that's where you go on this thing. But he was convinced as a line that they'd get going. Forster, I think Tortorella's impatience there is he can't really be impatient with many guys because he's had so much patience with Frost.
Yeah. Gosh, light years.
Yeah. That But I think in addition to not getting that shot off, he's also not playing as well without the puck as he did last year, Forster. As strong a game against the wall and things like that. And that's where I think that with him, they're thinking that once he gets that back, he'll get some offense going. But you're right; those two are, for a coach to flat out point those names right out. Like look, we put this in ink pen, not just pencil. We figured we're going to get more from these guys here, and it's just not happening. And I think they're starting to feel it a little, which they should. I mean, there's lots expected of them, especially Tippett.
Yeah, and especially this week. I mean, for them to have success on this road trip, which is, it's funny, we were talking about in the broadcast, and it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, no, it's that bad. It's that challenging. At Carolina, at Tampa Bay, at Florida, Southern Swing, and all teams that have a lot of offensive firepower. So in order to stay in these games, no secret, you're going to have to score some goals.
You are. It's going to be an interesting trip. I think Eric Johnson's going to be his 1,000th, pretty close to his 1,000th game.
Yeah.
It might be against Florida, which would be really cool because he was there for Keith Tkachuk's 1,000th game when he was a rookie, Johnson, and he would be playing against the Tkachuk in his 1,000th game, but it'd be Keith's son. That would be really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool stuff. We'll see what the Flyers can do this week. Thank you so much for tuning into South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. We'll see you later on this week to recap this road trip.